Chapter 14. Gilrad's Run Off. It was late, and all save one table of locals had cleared out of the Crow. This bit of good fortune gave Sumi and Furrier the opportunity to catch up with their long-lost Gilrad. It gave me the opportunity to tidy without help. Kalka was nowhere to be found. "Cadabasti!" laughed Gilrad. I'd never heard of that place, but it was enough to hold the attention of his audience. He chattered confidently at the bar, leaning upon it with care for neither Bettina nor an evening's rest. How long was he going to stay up and be annoying? My sigh was louder than intended, as it appeared to cause Furrier to scowl at me. I scooped up the final tray of mugs and wiped down the sullied table before taking the tray to the kitchen for a wash. I was tired and thirsty from my afternoon revels with Gilly, and embarrassed and glad the evening's work was nearly over. "Yes, Cadabasti," he continued. "It's not much more than a few clapboard houses and bivouacs now, but I expect she'll be grown up soon." "And you were finding your fortune there?" Sumi whispered excitedly. "Ah, dear Sumi," Gilrad said with an amount of wistfulness I found hard to believe. "I left this place for riches, but it was not to be. I'd say I was too hasty. Ran out of my own money before I could stake a claim and find any gold for myself. I don't think the findings in Cadabasti are half as big as rumors made them out to be, and the brave sorts who got there first, traders mostly, have probably gobbled it all up. So here I am with almost nothing to show for it." Furrier shook his head sadly. "But there is often a bright side," said Gilrad. "Made some friends along the way who kept me company on the road as they traveled back eastward. Should be along shortly. Trolls, actually, if you can believe it." Furrier's already gnarled face twisted itself into something like fear. "Trolls?" he lisped. Gilrad nodded knowingly. "Good lads. They helped me out a fair bit." The innkeeper appeared before we sensed her coming. She was counting coinage at the far side of the bar, having cleared the final table of patrons noiselessly. "Kalka!" Gilrad was doing a good job of hiding his nerves. She looked him up and down, said, "Gilrad," then surveilled the common room. She cleared her throat. "Rooms are the same price as they were. We have a few available on the second floor. Let's see the tavern cleaned up, please. It's late." I winced, but turned submissively to give the tables one last wipe down. "I'm so sorry I left so suddenly," said Gilrad. He looked down at the floor. "I realize I left you short-handed, and it was foolish of me. Please forgive me." "I forgive you," said Kalka in a cold voice. "Rooms are the same price." The embarrassment and agitation from earlier came over me again, and I wished to slip away into a hole somewhere. Gilrad's obvious discomfort became my own, even across the room where I was tidying. He was not dismayed, though. "Perhaps," he began, "I could help in the livery. Maybe get my old job back. I do miss the horses, and the rest of you lot." Gilrad smiled weakly and folded his hands together. Now my embarrassment turned to shock. Here I was, probably about to be fired and replaced all in one evening. Couldn't I just go to bed? Sumi looked at me with concern. "I have no job openings at present," said Kalka. "But it is—" She clapped her hands awkwardly and huffed, expelling some unspoken frustration. "It's nice to see you. Welcome back to Nawari." I felt, rather than heard, the wide door open. Furrier blanched, his green-gray face turning as pale as I'd ever seen it. "You two?" Kalka said stoutly. Sumi frowned. In walked two trolls, chattering between themselves. They wore ragged shirts and frock coats, and no shoes, so their clawed feet slapped against the hardwood floor. The taller had a knitted cap on his head. After a moment of listening to their talk and getting a good look, I could see that they were the same two trolls who had passed through at the beginning of autumn, on the falling market day, as Sumi called it. "Boys!" Gilrad smiled and waved at them. "Oi, shorty!" said one, flashing a toothsome and dangerous grin. "Hobbler!" Gilrad nodded at him, then the other. "Yeah, it's us two," said Hobbler, still smiling, but now at Kalka. Both trolls sauntered towards an open space at the bar and leaned on it heavily. They stood opposite Furrier, who looked like a dog ready for beratement after soiling the rug. "Me and old Catchpole here thought it was best to make sure our pal Gilrad returned home safely." Gilrad cleared his throat nervously. "Sides," said Catchpole, gesturing my way. "This one said he'd deliver us to— What was it, Hobbler?" Hobbler scratched his pocked chin in fake consideration.
I believe it were the very lap of comfort, my lad.
The two looked at each other and laughed heartily. Gilrad smiled, swallowing hard, and looked at the rest of us. I believe you were being very rude to Furrier last time you were coming through Nawari. Sumi Kind spoke with hearty effect, clearly displeased with these two, even if they had at least 3 feet of height over her. Kalka crossed her arms. I agree. Very rude.
Nah,
said Hobbler playfully. He waved his arm as if to dismiss the very absurdity of such a notion.
We's only having a laugh with our kinsmen. Not often we see many trolls on the road, see?
Catchpole explained.
Most trolls are off north for the war. They say. Decent trolls, anyway.
Hobbler looked hard at Furrier.
War is bad for business, though, which is how we found ourselves mixed up with our Gilrad.
I'll cover their rooms, Gilrad put in.
And a pint,
added Catchpole. Bar's closed, said Kalka. Catchpole nodded.
Tomorrow, then, before we're off on the road back home.
Kalka sighed. Fine. We've a double open on the 2nd floor. She looked at me, and the hearth's smoldering fire reflected in her eyes. Torsen will see you up. I could feel my face showing its confusion and anger. All at once my embarrassment and shame flickered away, and I dropped the cloth I'd been cleaning with. My hands balled up. No, I said, probably sounding like a child, like the little boy Kalka thought I was. But this would not stand. Even after Kalka angrily slapped her palm on the bar, I kept talking. If I'm going to work, then I need to know I've got a job or not. I won't work for free, not after the way you spoke to me. We're going to suss this out. Furrier grumbled, and apparently unable to suffer any more awkwardness, left through the kitchen door. The other trolls watched him go, then became extremely interested in the conflict, while Gilrad and Sumi, knowing the innkeeper, grimaced. No doubt they were thinking of ways to extricate themselves. Stop judging me, Kalka shouted. Stop assuming things. You think I would just fire you without a word? I never said anything of the kind. Just shut up and do your job for once. You told me to get out, and now Gilrad is here and... Kalka growled audibly. Well, if you're looking for a reason to leave, she said through grinding teeth, why don't I help you pack? She raised her voice and stamped upstairs. What had I done? Why couldn't I just shut up and do my job? Sumi lifted a fist to her mouth and coughed politely. I'll show you to your rooms, sirs, she said to the trolls. Sumi Kind smartly took the trolls through the courtyard to the east wing and up to their rooms as I sprinted through the kitchen to the stairs after Kalka. No, I called from behind. Don't do that. Just let me stay until the new year, please. Kalka gave no indication that she was about to stop or even slow her steps. I marched upstairs after her, ranting the whole way. I'm sorry, yeah? Isn't that what you're after, an apology? My voice echoed up the stairwell, chasing her into the hallway. Still, she gave no response. Don't touch my things, Kalka! What's all this? Naergi's head popped out of his room. He was wearing a sleeping cap, and it looked as though he were still half dreaming. Oh, shut up and go to bed, Naergi! I shouted nastily. Hey! Kalka's voice echoed from my room in defense of her guest. The old dwarf shook his head and went back inside his room. I said don't touch my things! I cried. Too late. I stepped into my room and shouted her name again, but Kalka was already turning the place upside down. Here, she said fiercely. Here's your bag. She chucked my satchel onto the bed. I don't mind, really. She threw a shirt into it. You'll want all of it, won't you? Stop, I said feebly. The thought of wrestling her away from my things crossed my mind, but that could be as unwinnable as it would be impolite. She opened the top drawer of my dresser. No, she said, I'm here to help. That's all I've been trying to do this whole time with you. Your bad manners, your irresponsibility, your silly ideas, your sheer inability to just do the work. I'm trying to help. And with that last word, she reached into the drawer and grabbed the brooch. Clearly, she did not realize what it was at first. After it had been thrown into my bag, she must have gotten a more complete look at it, though, because she stopped immediately. What by God is this? Her voice rose even higher. Her tall, broad frame grew more menacing. Even though my window was closed, I heard a voice calling from across the courtyard saying, Hey, stop all the noise! Well, what do you want with my things anyway? I tried to deflect. You know I can't leave tonight. Just get out and let's talk in the morning. Cooler heads and all that. Kalka scooped the brooch up into her hand again and shook it at me silently. They told me they lost something. Those people from the capitals, room 21. You stole this, Torsen. I didn't mean to. It was just a misunderstanding. If you'd just settle down, then we could... You're a thief and a gossip, and you've got no respect, I gasped. Well, you're a jackass who can't even be honest with herself. Now it was her turn to gasp. Apology rescinded, I cried, perhaps immaturely. I was joking anyway. It was a fake apology. I'm going to smack you like your mother should have. No time for another gasp, though that was a low blow. Instead, I let my voice simmer and said, You want to help? All I've done is be honest with what I see. With you, Shaitan, Elgad. Help yourself and tell one of them how you feel, for God's sake, instead of bothering me. You little brat! Kalka's voice was like a steel blade in the dark. If I see you come sunrise, so help me. Please. Magically, Sumi Kind appeared between us. Her little pixie face was strained and upset, and she took a ragged breath, seeming on the brink of tears. Please just stop. Kalka literally snarled like a feral creature threatening its prey, but walked out of the room before doing any violence. In the doorway, she held up the brooch and waved it teasingly. I'm keeping this. I sighed and noticed I was shaking. Sumi gave me another plaintive look and walked out, wagging her head. I didn't... Sumi! I called after her, but she was gone, and I was alone in my room. Soon, it seemed, I would be gone as well. This has been The Green Crow Inn by Derek A. Kamal, read by Kalman Friedman, with music by Michael Elliott. To find out more, including how to purchase your copy of the novel, please visit shorelessskies.com.